Okay, it has come. So now question is there that do we contemplate sitting on a lazy boy's chair? That is very important. I've been talking. So today's topic is what are the causes and symptoms of three mental diseases that we covered before. Do you still remember? Have you contemplated emotional dependence, attachment, and second is sorrow and the suffering, and third is delusion. So we will go deeper into it. We have already started learning some of the topics. So it is beyond the seeker is treading the path. Seeker means that you listen to it, you have a knowledge, and then you contemplate and reflect so that the knowledge becomes yours. Knowledge becomes yours. You see a little deeper but quite interesting. I know brandy. Knowledge is there. Now, when the brandy appears, I need not to think. I am aware what she is. Right? Now, apply the same logic to I have a knowledge of the real self. Do I need to think? I am finished. That is the journey. That is the goal. You wake up in the morning, you are real self. You are neither David nor Jerry nor Steve. You are the real self. Did you see that? So that is what it will come only when we contemplate and reflect. When we contemplate and reflect. So we have already started the journey. You see that knowledge is revealed by tradition. What is the tradition? Knowledge very well given to seekers by a method. Who gives the knowledge? Pass on the knowledge, the teacher. That knowledge is already present in the tradition. Do you see the difference between knowledge and awareness? I'm aware of you all. The first knowledge, then experience, and that very experience is awareness. Knowledge becomes experience. It only becomes awareness when we contemplate and reflect. Three steps: internal yoga, listening and learning from a teacher. Did I cover that? Listening and learning. We all are listening to each other every day. How it is different from the listening here? We should we should we should put reasoning to clarify. Here, the Eastern wisdom, it's listening, engages the mind, intellect, and the memory. What it means? I say real self. What is the meaning of the real self? Real self is pure consciousness. It is of the nature of permanent peace and happiness. So that is the knowledge kept in the intellect. In normal listening and communicating, we need not to keep that intellect alive. And then we have the memory. We keep it in the memory so that we can retrieve whenever it is required. Rather by just saying before the beginning of a session, when any problem comes, I start contemplating, the knowledge returns, and I am there. See that? That is what the second step. That is why I said always sit in a lazy chair, close your eyes, and start thinking. Instead of thinking of blaming, complaining, reaction, hesitation, you see, you have to make a choice. Intellect makes a choice, there comes the discernment. There comes a discernment. You see that, look at the mind at a very subtler level, very subtler level. You can see those vibes. You say you are looking at your honey, and the mind carries the impression of duality and a conflict. The mind starts living with that. You get a vibe of that. And you say, do you want a cup of tea? Yes, make it. See our expression. So through the expression, we know contemplation will remove those triggers. Those triggers. So having said that, now we will meet Lara. Lara has come. So remember all the time that we are human beings, self-aware, and a free intellect. I am thinking of freedom from the sorrow and suffering. From where? Teacher and the text. Teacher is not teaching from his own whims and fancies. And I've come to the principle. One principle we laid down. If you have contemplated and if you have questions, you are moving to the next step. Are you still remembering the three diseases of the mind? Attachment. Detachment is the first disease we covered. Second, that leads to sorrow and the suffering. And third, it leads to delusion. Okay. Do you remember? I believe you remember. Now, how come this attachment and detachment enters into my mind? What is the cause? Why? Because we are a pleasure seeker. I covered that topic. Now we are talking of those principles. You all are seekers. But why we are a pleasure seeker? Because there is an emotional dependence. But what causes the dependence? Did you contemplate? Now everything lies on you. How much you can evolve. When we are a pleasure seeker, when we are not a pleasure seeker, or how this mind causes the emotional dependence by default. So there comes the answer from Gita. Dhyayatah vishayan punsa sangam teshu pujayati. So remember, we are talking of 8 factors. Always remember this 8 factors should be digested, assimilated into your intellect, so that this intellect can take the action if the mind creates an emotional dependence. Huh? Isn't it? So if you keep those 8 factors into your intellect, and the moment the mind is running after, like a dog, like your pet, so we take over the mind. So what it says, dhyayata vishayan punsah sangam teshu upajayate. Sangat sanjayate kama, kamat krodha abhijayate. Now see that first factor is object. Second is sense organ. Third is the emotional dependence, which means the attachment. Fourth is the desire. Fifth is the agitation, stress, and suffering. So now from the 3 factors, we are moving to the 8 factors. And check it. Tell me if it is wrong. Prove it is wrong. It has been continuing for the last 10,000 years. Prove it is wrong. And if you know 8 factors in your intellect, you can take care of the mind. So we will understand. So In the first verse, it says there are 5 factors. Objects of the world. What are the objects? Time. Good morning, bad morning. Remember this. My honey is good and bad. Another object. Oh, today event is not good and bad. Look at this. All the objects of the material world, objects. That which I know by the mind is an object. I know you, you are an object for me. I know my phone, it is an object for me. So remember, first, I'm making your mind remember objects of the world means the world outside. Second is sense organs. Third is attachment and detachment. Fourth is the desire. Fifth is the hesitation, anger, stress, and suffering. We still have 3. Why we suffer? We are exploring that. So what its master says, that absorbing interest by default. Oh, what a beauty. What an ugliness. What a good morning. What a bad morning. Is the mind has an absorbing interest subconsciously, habitually. Check where the mind is. Is it outside on an object, people, place, thing, relationship? Or it is inside that I am the seeker. Those who contemplate, you instantly return that I am a seeker. Come on. Objects means, are you clear? First factor is the objects in the world, means people, place, time, condition are there in the world. They are independent. They exist for them. They do not exist for me. If this exists for me, it will chase me. Phone, anything. The moment I am aware they exist for me, I am becoming a seeker. Then comes the sense organ, the second factor. Are you getting it? Second factor, 5 sense organs, 5 gateways of knowledge. Oh, I feel this cushion is very good where I'm sitting. You see that? Look at it. Sight. Oh, you all are paying attention to me, so I'm happy. You see? Remain independent. 5 sense organs, 5 gateways of knowledge. Now, in between the sense organ and the mind comes attachment by default, detachment by default. What it means by default? Do you ever think a person you dislike before you dislike? Check it. It's animal mind. It's a habitual mind. It is an instinctive mind. It is impulsive mind. No, I like David. I don't like Kate. Simple thought. And that thought, if it repeats couple of times, what the master is saying, absorbing interest. Mind takes absorbing interest. How Lara is good, how the second person is bad. I start thinking about it. So I have to trim these thoughts the way the landscaper trims your lawn. Thought, we have to think, but you have to think. So what is the third factor? Objects, sense organs. Now in between the sense organ and the mind, by default, because it's animal nature, because it is looking for peace and happiness outside, because it is searching an object that can give me peace and happiness internally, I'm not thinking, just it is impulsive nature, I start liking and disliking. That causes the attachment. Third factor. So now We are not talking of the mind. We are talking of what are the symptoms that is taking place. Objects, sense organs, attachment and detachment, that results into desire. Desire is always has an element of emotional dependence on an object, on a person, or a thing outside. You simply think about it. No, I'm terrified by. No, take the same example. I'm terrified by the honey. Honey is object perceived by the sense organ. You have some kind of an attachment and detachment, so desire is created. I'm terrified, it has an element of desire. What should I do? Do you see that? I like this car. Do you see that? Everything should happen inside my head. I need not to do headstand pose. That is external yoga. Do you see that? I need not to do a headstand pose and walk on my hands when the feet are already given and they are intact. Four. Four. Now think of it. So what is the fifth factor? What is the fifth factor? Fifth factor, the master says, what is the fifth factor? Master says, fifth factor is, he refers to as his translation is anger. That includes hesitation, stress, and suffering. Now contemplate and reflect how he has reached to this conclusion. Objects, sense organ, second factor. Third is attachment and detachment. Fourth is the desire. Fifth factor is anger, hesitation, stress, and suffering. Yes, Kate, you want to say something and ask something. Okay. Sometimes we raise our hands. So raise our. So how come? Now ask yourself. Ask yourself. What is the reason? I have a desire. So how the master is saying anger, hesitation, stress, and suffering. So here he uses the word sangam, sangat sanjayate kama, kama krodho abhijayate. Abhijayate means it leads to, results to, that desire leads to anger. Anger. Or stress and suffering, unease, discomfort. In last Thursday's session, couple is attending the session. So wife said, he's not feeling good. I said, you are not feeling good. That is why you must attend the session. That is one result of the desire. Now pay attention. Again, I'm repeating. Object is the first. Any object. It may be a person, it may be an event, it may be a thing. Object is first, and that is independent of me. Do not chase me, but I chase them. Do you see the level of emotional dependence? I chase them. So when I have a knowledge, I become aware of it. Oh, I'm mind. You are chasing. I know. Second, how it is chasing with the help of the sense organs. 5 sense organs, 5 instruments of knowledge. Huh? 5 instruments of knowledge. Huh? Sight, sound, taste, huh? etc. Smell. At that moment, the mind is working instinctively, habitually, impulsively, like an animal mind. I can give a break just by being aware. But I am not aware, so result is attachment or detachment. You liking, disliking. Both comes under the same. Third factor. What is the fourth factor? Fourth factor is the desire takes birth in the mind. So now we will understand this fifth factor, which says anger, hesitation, anxiety, mental tension, duality, conflict, add all the entire abnormal psychology here. I was doing masters in psychology, I told you. There is a 2,000 pages book. title is Abnormal Psychology. And you have to study to pass the examination. And the more you study, you start observing how many symptoms that you have in you. No, ADD is different from ADHD. ADHD is different from depression. Depression is different from, and you go on. Go on. I'm not criticizing, that's also a branch of knowledge. So now understand this. If the desire is fulfilled, it creates greed. Greed means I want to repeat the same pleasure. So repeating the same pleasure, the greed is also a kind of hesitation in my mind. Do you see that? And if the desire is not fulfilled, I am stressed. That is how we understand. In both the cases, we have the stress. That is why the fifth factor, the master is saying, it leads to sorrow and the suffering. Whether you want to repeat the pleasure or your desire is not fulfilled, so you want to fulfill, there is a greater hesitation. Think of this. You need to contemplate. Desire is fulfilled. So my mind says, you see, because of that object, I had the pleasure in my mind. So I will repeat the same pleasure. So that repeating the same pleasure with an object outside, mind is already agitated. It still continues to move into the by the impulsive and the instinctive nature, which we can hide as a human being because we are intelligent. We are not animals. So we can hide that. But still it is there. It is present. It creates millions of impressions. I come to your house and say, what would you like to take? Tea and coffee? Now see, go back to the past impression in my mind. If my mind says, I like coffee, no, coffee. Repeat, pleasure. It's casual. But it is creating more impressions. We will understand how to get rid of it. First, we are understanding the fifth factor. And now the desire is not fulfilled. What I feel? It's normal. I feel stressed, anxious, hesitated. I want to do it again. I want to make more effort, more hesitation. I'm making an effort of more hesitation due to the attachment and detachment due to the third factor and the fourth factor. Are you getting it? We'll cover all the five, all the eight. Did we understand that relationship between the objects, sense organs? Third is attachment and detachment. Fourth is desire. And the fifth is sorrow and suffering. Five factors. I need to contemplate. How you will contemplate? The moment, after all, we are self-aware, we have a self-awareness, we are a human being. You see, now go back to the same principle. We have a higher self-awareness, we have a free intellect. Did you digest these two traits of the human being? I have a free intellect to observe, to make a choice, and to hold on to that choice. And I have a higher self-awareness. Now, during the day, mind says, I am upset. Can you explore? Start contemplating. Find out. You will find it is the series of these five factors causing you upset. not anyone in the world. Are you getting it? No, how dare you can make me upset? Can you have that statement in your intellect? How dare you can make me upset? It has other millions of thoughts that we will talk later. But think of this: objects, any object, my friend, I like, but he did not like. Why he did not like? Because he did something which I never expected. So I was attached. That's why I had an expectation. And that is why I had a desire. And that is why I am upset. Because he did not do what I expected. Please don't expect anything from me because you will become upset. You'll be more upset. Some people explain, no, I'm a seeker. You see, my wife is not a seeker. Come on. Come on. I understand based on the principles. You have not to worry whether your wife is a seeker or not. Are you a seeker or not? That is more important. Look at it. We'll talk about the three other factors, but to give you a clue and so that you can think of it. The sixth factor is the loss of memory. Now we talk about short-term memory, long-term memory, we talk about dementia. We are not there, you know. They are great people. Modern psychologists are great people. Let them talk about this, let them treat. We are talking of loss of memory because I lost being a human being. I can tackle this problem in the level of self-awareness and the intellect which I lost. Loss of memory. What is right and good, I lost it. And the fifth, this is the sixth factor. And the seventh is the loss of intelligence. Now the intellect is behind. When the intellect is behind, I rationalize my attachment. Do you see that I rationalize my attachment? We all have done it. I have done it. We all do it. I rationalize loss of intelligence, loss of memory, loss of intelligence. These are 6, 7. And before that, sixth factor, before is known as delusion. So initially I explained you, we understood attachment and detachment, symptom. Second disease is the sorrow and the suffering, and third is the delusion. Now, how they take birth in my daily life, it is because of the 8 factors, my friends. Who says this? The founder of this Eastern wisdom, the Krishna, where he says in the Gita and other places also. So just to remind you, think and contemplate about it. The moment you are in stress, you are in anxiety, you have a duality, you have a conflict, you have an anger, you have an hesitation. Come on, intellect, mind, remember the 8 factors. Where is the problem? Objects first. Second, sense organ. Third, attachment and detachment. Fourth, desire. Fifth, sorrow and suffering. Sixth, that sorrow and suffering, now we put it later. Delusion. Delusion, illusion, wrong notion, misunderstanding. I misunderstand myself. That is why I suffer. What we normally say, I misunderstood you. That is why I know, that is why, I feel stressed. Come on. Let us understand ourselves. That is much better rather than understanding others. So objects, sense organs, 5 gateways of knowledge, attachment and detachment. Then comes the desire. Desire leads to delusion. Delusion leads to loss of memory. Loss of memory, you understand, it's not dementia or Alzheimer's. We are not talking of that. We are not entering into modern psychology. I lose being a human being. Loss of intelligence, 8 factors. Krishna says it destroys our life. He simply says it destroys our life. Think of this. It's a time for us to contemplate. And now is the time for practice.